Newcomer's Corner at a kingdom event, I will typically talk about one thing briefly, then open the floor for questions about that thing, and then ask questions about, handle questions about anything, like why is that man wearing a badger on his head? Now we've got a little more peace and quiet. We don't have the hubbub of an event around us. We've got a little more time. I'm going to try to slow down, even though that's not my nature, and we can take a little more time. But I'm not going to ramble on and on and on. The topic of today's subject was, how did we get to AS60? So we're going to try to do the entire history of the SCA in about 15, 20 minutes. So there might be some glossing over. So May 1st, we kick over into the new year, and it will be AS61. The reason of that, Anno Societatis means year of our society. Our society began in May 1966 at a theme party on Telegraph Hill in the 60s in California with hippies and science fiction authors. And it was a counterculture movement to protest the oppression of the modern world. And the first tournament was held. A number of gentlemen fought in the honor of their ladies. And one of them was crowned the Queen of May with a wreath of flowers. And to this day, what is now California is the West Kingdom. The winners of their crown tournament are crowned with wreaths of flowers in memory of that. They don't wear crowns, they literally wear a wreath of flowers. I saw a question. What was the question on chat?
More comment from.
Yeah. How did we get to AS60? Very slowly. So I joined. Duncan and I were talking before people joined. I joined the SCA in 1987, which would have been about AS 21, 22, 23, somewhere in there. And I joined when I was 17 and had a lot more energy than I have now. I have mellowed out immensely. Now, some of the people like Duncan and certainly Thomas, they predate me, and they're going to correct me on whatever I get wrong. But we're not going to really talk about numbers and dates. We're going to talk about how we got to be here in the Kingdom of Eldamir, how we play, because we play very differently than other kingdoms. And it's all somebody's fault. So I'm going to ask the new people here. You've been to an event or two. You've seen they call up the people for their first event. You get a cup, and the herald says, "For the newcomers, may they ever return." Are you guys familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay. So that phrase, for the newcomers, may they ever return, was coined. No, not every kingdom does that. This is somewhat unique to Eldamir. So that little phrase was coined by a gentleman named Paleo, who played in Efferwick and hasn't played now for 6 or 7 years. But there's an echo of him, constantly going in the SCA. He coined that phrase, and it's his fault we say that. The kingdom that we live in, the barony that you live in, the culture we live in, it is the echo of people who made stuff up 1 year, 5 year, 60 years ago, and we're just echoing the culture that we've built as a community. So we're going to talk about that. So, brief history of the SCA in 15 minutes. There was a party. There was a first event. Everybody had fun. They decided to have a second event and then a third event. Science fiction authors thought this was awesome. If you look at early works of Poul Anderson or Fritz Lieber or Anne McCaffrey, they promote the SCA in the forewords of their books. The first kingdom was the West Kingdom. Some of those people moved to New York. They formed the East Kingdom. And then an economist professor named David Friedman decided in Chicago to form the Middle Kingdom. You see where this is going. And then from there, the other kingdoms formed and split off those various kingdoms. Those first 3 kingdoms have very distinct flavors. The West is not like the East. The East is not like the Middle. And we have while we are the angry teenage kid, I'll never be like you, Mom and Dad, I'm moving out and you can't stop me. There are echoes of the Middle Kingdom in what we do, even though that was our stuffy parent. If we forward to about 1973, Finvar was the king of the East. Finvar, history professor, Stephen Mullberger, he moved. He had played in the SCA in Michigan. He had reigned in the East Kingdom, came back to Canada, started an SCA group in Canada. Yes, that is your grandpa. He is everybody's grandpa. He is my favorite absent-minded professor, literally. From there, we still have a few people playing from those earliest days, but it was Finvar and then Gillian, who helped form Efferwick. Yes, Finvar was at the 50th event, absolutely. And then Sivia, who you guys will know. Sivia originally started playing in north of Toronto in the old Shire of Norlandia. And then she moved to the Ottawa region and helped form the canton of Skraeling Althing, and everything was part of Septentria. All of Ontario was Septentria at that point. And then Enid and Henry started playing. Enid was the first Baroness of Skraeling Althing. When I joined in 87, she had been the Baroness for like 7 or 8 years. They didn't have time limits back then. Aiden and Kaffa had been the Baron and Baroness of Septentria for 10 years. They were very tired when they stepped down. Now, there is, I'm not going to bore you with a history lesson, but a bunch of people in the Toronto area wrote the Chronicles of Efferwick, and they chronicled the SCA's earliest days, and it's a very entertaining read, and there's a link in the chat. Now,
they're also in nice PDFs on the Efferwick website.
Oh, share the link.
Will do.
Because I only found the first volume. Now,
okay, they're all there now.
Now, my perspective, I started the SCA in Kitchener. At that point, I was part of the canton of the very new canton of Branaugh-Twinog in the barony of Septentria. So my perspective is not Skraeling Althing oriented. It's very much Septentria oriented. And my first Baron and Baroness were Aiden and Kaffa. And Aiden was the guy who would get drunk at events and pass out in his throne and hang out with all the new people and show them how to brew and throw a sword shot. And Kaffa was the awesomest, pushiest, loud-mouthiest, opinionated Baroness I ever met. And Septentria has a honorable tradition of pushy Baronesses who are not meek and are not mild. They were my first Baron and Baroness. And they did not put on airs. They did not put themselves off on a pedestal. They hung out with the new kids. They were very approachable. They were people first, not their rank. Now, they were my first experience. And shortly thereafter, and the Mid-Realm kings and queens, which we were part of their kingdom, they didn't come up and visit us all that much. And when they did, they'd swoop in with a crowd of retinue, and then they would swoop out, and it would be lovely theater. But you never really knew them as people. They were hats with meat suits underneath. Now, after I had been playing a couple years, my first real king and queen I got to know were Tadashi and Ariake. Tadashi was a very old person. He was the second or third king of the Mid-Realm under a different persona, and then in his 50s, he decided to do it again. He had fade, that's correct. Tadashi won his second crown tournament in his 50s. He had Japanese armor. He had a handle on the back of his breastplate for his squires to lift him up when he fell down. And his queen, Ariake, was like in her late 20s, and she was 4'2", and they were fun. And they came up to Eldamir, and they put aside the hats and the pomp and the circumstance, and they squired Tristram of Galador, who still plays in the Kitchener area. They knighted David Martin Failsworth, who was our first prince and first king, and they were fun. So Eldamir, being off in its own corner, living its own little personality, not getting stuck up on heirs and, oh, well, that's Master so-and-so. We weren't like that. And that was because of Szilard and Iden and Caffa and Sivia. They were people first, and they were hanging out with their friends. It wasn't as stratified. When, fast forward to when we were a region, the Mid-Realm, when they did visit, would find we played very differently than the rest of the Mid-Realm. There were personality clashes. We were very much their Scotland to England. We had an issue. So the Mid-Realm is divided into regions. The Oaken region, which is Ohio, the Midlands region, which is Indiana, the Evergreen region, the Northwoods. There are different regions. Eldamere was a region. We, doing things the way we wanted to do, thought we'd have a tournament to appoint a champion for our region. And they had a tournament, and they invited all the fighters to come, but you had to have 12 people of good repute speak for you to enter in the tournament. And our kingdom law that says you must have an AOA or have 12 people speak for you is an echo of that first tournament. And Belgar fought in that tournament. He's still around. The winner of that tournament was Yogg Rees Mordwin, fellow from Hamilton. He was about 5'2" high and about 5'2" wide. And he was a very meat and potatoes guy. And Honora, who I never met, and they were made champions. And we had some lovely collars of leather and brass made by Szilard and Mordred and gave it to them. And they sat in court beside our Baron and Baroness of Septentria. And got back to the Mid-Realm, and they were unhappy. The king of the Mid-Realm had what he called the washroom curia. That's what it's called in the history books, where he said, what's Eldamere doing? They're a bunch of upstarts. And he forced the prince of the Mid-Realm to go to see the Eldamerians and tell them they had to knock it off. And that prince was Talamar, who actually was a friend of a bunch of people up here. And he went to an ice dragon. It wasn't even in our kingdom. It was in New York. They pulled all the Eldamerians in the room and said, you can't be Eldamere anymore. This went over like a lead balloon. So my first Penzic, and we were told we could not use the word Eldamere. So my first Penzic, I went down to Penzic, and there were a bunch of really angry people on the field, and they were running around chanting the war cry, all the beer, which sounds a little bit similar. Privy Council. So we are a Privy Council. Their Privy Council is called a curia.
It was that the privy part of Privy Council was the washroom part.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. We actually call ours a Privy Council now. So Eldamere had this level of contestation. Now, kings come and kings go. Talamar became the king. Oh, you're Eldamere again. Everything's fine. And he was friends with a bunch of people up here. But there was constant conflict back and forth. The Mid-Realm would come up and visit, and they would bring their haughtiness and their retinue, and they'd play a very proper game. And as a teenager, I remember piling into a blue panel van with a bunch of long-haired hoodlums, 30 bows, and a bunch of homemade beer, and driving down to Michigan for an event. And we would pile out of the van, and we'd look at the minivans and the station wagons and all the people in proper medieval clothing, and singing Gregorian chants, and we'd laugh and point at them and went, that'll never be us. It's us. We are not the loud teenagers that we once were. But so there was a cultural difference. So we were eventually made a region again, and then we became a crown principality.
No, we were never made a region again.
So we went back to crown principality?
We went straight to crown principality.
So we went to crown principality 87, 88. We became a principality. So a crown principality is a principality without a prince and princess. So it's a test drive.
There is a prince and princess. The prince was the king. The prince was the king of the middle.
Yeah,
just like the Prince of Wales is the Prince of Wales.
I'm getting there. So we did not have our own self-selected prince and princess. It was like an incipient canton, test driving to be a principality. Now, the Mid-Realm took the conceit, like the Prince of Wales is the prince, the heir to the king of England. they said that their crown prince and princess were the prince and princess of Eldamir. So when we do the line of the north, there are the prince kings of the mid-realm. Then we became a principality April 4th, 1990. The first coronet tournament was held in Brno. I was in maybe 2 years, 3 years at that point. I was washing dishes in the kitchen during a ridiculous 3-hour court where they read all the kingdom laws, principality laws. David Martin Failsworth won for the honor of Tangwistle. And back in those days, oh, you won the tournament. You're the prince, go. No air period, just go. And for the first few years, that's how our princes and princesses were picked. Now, the mid-realm, being a overprotective parent, was terrified we'd get it wrong. Roak, as the 4th prince of Eldamir, had many conversations with the kingdom seneschal of the mid-realm. You can't do this, and you got to do this, and this is the way it's got to be. So what ended up happening is every 6 months we'd have a coronet tournament. We never got to run them on our own. So the king and queen of the mid-realm would come up to visit us. And it became their, for lack of a better term, their Camp David, for the president of the United States. They got to let their hair down. They got to be real people. They got to hang out with people. And they started thinking, this isn't a bad place. These people aren't stuffy. And then we separated our coronet tournaments to our investitures. So it wasn't, oh, you're the prince, go. It was, you're the heir to become the prince and princess. We'll see you in 6 months. So now the king and queen of the mid-realm were coming up 4 times a year. And sometimes they'd come up a 5th or 6th time. We got more attention than the mid-realm because we were the happy, fun place. And a lot of the early kings and queens of the mid-realm were approachable when they came up to see us. Now, we were a principality for a while. If you guys are familiar with the movie Braveheart, there might have been the odd occasion where somebody was wielding a bastard sword with a piece of tartan tied to it, yelling freedom. There might have been the occasion where the king of the mid-realm came up. Somebody thought it was funny to make up pewter pins that said ELO, Eldamir Liberation Organization. And the king and queen came up, pulled aside all the principality officers and the princes and princesses, yelled at us, like, what are you doing? You can't do this. Walked off. I was one of the principality officers. The prince looked at me and went, well, I don't know what that's all about, but I want a pin now. So very much Scotland to their England. Eventually, the Mordain and Mencken, who you guys should know, they had reigned fairly close to each other near the end days of the principality, and they decided to go into the mid-realm and go, well, we're ready to be a kingdom. Top secret, we were not ready to be a kingdom. We had all the patriotism and spirit and none of the paperwork. And the mid-realm had all the paperwork and none of the patriotism and spirit. As a principality, we had like 7 or 8 theme songs. They had none. So they walked into the barn at Penzic going, okay, we're going to go kingdom. And they walked up to the king queen looking for a fight. And they went, why are you still here? Our kingdom's too big. Get out. And it was less of a fight. Like it was a big fight until our parents decided, yeah, you can move out of our basement. We became a kingdom in 1998, October 24th, 1998, which was held in Ben Dunferth, where I lived at the time. And I was the autocrat of the first coronation. 1,000 people came. It was insane. People came from all the different kingdoms. We had a 3-hour, yes, we had a 3-hour court. We had to read all the kingdom laws. It was a lot. And our first king and queen was David Martin Failsworth, who won again. So he was our first prince and our first king. And he fought for a lady named Alina, who now lives in Hawaii, I believe. Hawaii or Ohio. She moves around a lot. But I still see her every once in a while. Wonderful person. And we started becoming our own kingdom. Now, we're Canadian, so we formed a lot of our paperwork part of our kingdom by committee, because that's what you do in Canada. And again, we're formed on the personalities that founded us. So in the earliest days, Iden, Kaffa, Sivia, very calm, very reasonable people. We went through being a principality. People like Hector and Roak and those people, and some of them are just like Hector just came back to Etherwick 50th. They had a lot to do with the spirit of Eldamir, the patriotism and the rah-rah. And then we became a kingdom, and our first few years were very tumultuous. Yes, he is. I've been nagging him a lot. Like our third king was Osis, who was also our prince, and like a month into his reign, he died in a car accident, and it was very traumatic for the kingdom. We had a number of early kings who didn't understand what it meant to be king, and it was a bumpy road a couple times. A lot of the early days was us finding our feet. Now we have found our feet. Our kings and queens might have one retainer or two, not 12. Our courts are 20 or 30 minutes, not 3 hours. I was joking. So I went down to the Mid-Realm before the border got stupid. And I went to an event called Harvest Days. They made 7 peers and had 25 awards in court. And and I'm watching this going, oh my God. And they'd call somebody up to receive their award of arms. Yes, and to your 12th night, yes. They'd call someone up to give their award of arms. The king and queen didn't know that person personally. They'd read the scroll, they'd shake their hand, they'd say nice things. The way we do things, the king and queen call them up. They know the person to see them. They have a little chat. You know, this is really important. This is very, you know, I've seen you do this and that. It's far more personal, which is lovely. It's slower. It makes the Mid-Realm people, when they come up, crazy. They're like, you only have 12 things to do in court. Yes, that's how it works in our kingdom. And we're much more equals first. We don't hang on our heirs, the heirs of our titles and whatnot. That's not as important. There are also differences in our kingdom. So I live, you know, on the western edge of Ben Dunferth. Ben Dunferth, it's the biker club of the kingdom. You know, they like to drink beer. A lot of them like to fight. They're very blunt. Mongol and Viking garb and early period is popular there. And, you know, a new fighter, get him up in blue plastic. Good enough. Let's go. Skraeling Althing, much more historically inclined. Oh, you want to fight? Here's a complete suit of a coat of plates, and away you go. And personal interests affect the flavor. There's more dancing in Skraeling Althing than there is in Ben Dunferth. There's more bardic in Etherwick than there is in Rising Waters. There's more archery in Rising Waters than there is in Skraeling Althing. You know, we are very much a culture that follow, like we have leaders in the group that create momentum. One person can be very excited about dance and get local dance practices going and teach period dance, and they could stop coming out, and dance practice will go for 5 or 6 years without them from the people that they taught. So we end up with this ripple effect of what people are interested in. You know, we have a strong bardic tradition because of early bards in the kingdom, like people like Sivia, people like Hector. And, you know, that got passed to Garrod, that got passed to Paleo, that got passed to Ashlyn. The kingdom that sings. We are very much the kingdom that sings. We have all the passion in the world. When Hector was around, the Mid-Realm king went, well, why don't we have a theme song? And yes, Ashlyn mentioned. Ashlyn is in Human, has the Line of the North memorized. That's insane. And Ash hasn't met 90% of the people in the Line of the North. So when Ash was practicing that for ANS, Ash had everything memorized, but didn't have the pronunciation of names right because they didn't have context. Right? Exactly. And Ash performed it in front of Hector at Etherwick 50th and was like, that's Hector. I'm like, oh, that's just Hector. So that brings us to our current day. We are in our second decade of being a kingdom. We are still a very unique culture. We do a number of things that are different than other kingdoms. Our Our higher ranking people don't have regalia stapled to their forehead. We have a law speaker. We have a moot. We have communal discussions. We are very much, you can just walk up to the king and say, hey, I have a question for you, Tristram. He'll say, sure, what's up? In the Middle Kingdom, when I played there, you go to an event, there's 800 people at an event. The king swoops in, you don't know who he is. So what he is more important than who he is. And literally, you could not just walk up to him and go, hey, king, how's it going? In Eldamir, oh, I went to university with that guy. Oh, I got drunk with that guy. Oh, yeah, that person was at my local meeting. It's far more personable. So that is an excellent thing for new people. You can talk to anybody. You can ask a question of anybody. You can ask why that man wears a badger on his head. And by the way, that example is a true example, and he's currently our king. He does have a badger that he does wear on his head when he's not being king. So that's where I'm going to stop my ramble for a moment. Let's stop for a second and let's ask the new people, do you guys have any, right, peer fear? That used to be a thing. Shadashi was one of the first peers I met. I did not suffer from peer fear, but I could see how it happened. So let's stop for a moment. Let's let the new people unmute. Ask any questions you have before we go to the next part. That counts you too, Eleanor. You've moved in from Anstiora. Is anything we do weird?
Not particularly, and we do give our new people cups as well.
Oh, do you? Awesome.
Yes. But it's different how people know each other better across groups.
Do you have a lot of siloed groups where people wouldn't travel so much?
Yes, not everyone in every group would travel, but the people who did travel more gained more recognition within the society.
Now, I'm curious, did you have isolation by households in Anstiora at all?
No.
Because that used to be a bit of an isolating factor in the Mid-Realm. They had a lot of really strong households, and they would kind of cluster in their own little self-contained groups, and they didn't often cross-pollinate.
Okay, well, at least my group was pretty much household free because it's hard to get anyone to live in West Texas for more than 7 years. So we had no formal households, but some households were really big, like Wolfstar in Vindheim was huge, and literally everybody was a member.
So Eldamir had a period where we had a lot of really active, really big households. We had Finvar's household Data. We had the Farringolds, which was the party household of the time. We had Reese Mordwin. We had the Rosak. Yeah, I know, Thomas. Yeah, now this is a family show. We had the Rosaki. We had the Marines. We had House Kestrel. There used to be a lot of households. There are less now. There's really some of the Rosaki are like, that's still a bit of a household. The Data is a bit of a household. There aren't the big giant cross kingdom households. Black Cloak. Well, Black Cloak's kind of a Data spinoff. But Leanne, you had a question?
So Sebastian and I are both transplants into this kingdom as well. We arrived in 2023 and then had to take 2024 off. But I do have questions about how the law speaker came into existence. I would really like to hear the story of how that was created and how that has evolved with the kingdom.
Can I start that and you'll finish it, Blair?
Sure.
So there used to be a pattern for a while where we would have theme events. So there was 100 years, there were Venetian Italian Renaissance events and 100 Years War event that I autocrated, and Aiden Kaffa autocrated a Celtic Games event. And one year, Sigrid decided to do a theme event, which was the Icelandic Althing. And she got reputable people to be law speakers at the Icelandic Althing, which where they heard cases and stuff, and the whole Icelandic Althing thing really took off, and it had a lot of the characteristics that you've been hearing about from Brand of the Eldemir, of people being who they are, of people first, of all these things. And so when we became a kingdom, I think the Icelandic, from the Icelandic Althing came the law speakers, came the moots, came some of these things.
So the
that
moots
happened.
developed separately. So the law speakers, you're bang on. So in our early days of a principality, we would have moots. We didn't have a law speaker at that point that was tied to the moots like we do now.
Yeah.
But literally, the prince and princess would arrange a moot. And I distinctly remember Osis's moot. He was the third prince of Eldemir. He literally, so Osis, when he won Coronet tournament, he was really new, like really, really new. So Osis and Hather were the third prince and princess, and they won Coronet tournament, and they called them in and went, okay, Hather, here's your award of arms, and now you're the princess. That's how new they were. And Osis was the fun party guy. And when he was prince, he literally announced he was going to have a moot, walked in, sat down on a stage, took his crown off, and went, what do you guys want to talk about? What do you want to do? What do you want to fix? What do you want to make better? And the moot was a gathering of individuals setting aside rank. And let's just talk about how to make the game better for everyone. When we became a kingdom, we took the idea of the law speaker, which is a period thing, and we took the idea of the moot and we merged them. Yes, Duncan.
First of all, when we got, now this was just before my time, but when Eldemir got the news that we were no longer a region, we were no longer the first.
I was in the room.
The first thing that happened apparently was we had a moot. How the hell we're going to deal with this?
That's slightly before my time.
Yeah, it's like my first event was Practicum 1986, and we were the region of Eldemir.
Yeah. So
by the time of my second event, we were the reporting area of Ontario for blah blah blah. blah.
Because the first tournament that Finvar organized to select the first champion that Yog won was held at the Efferwick Decennial event in 1985. And they were champion for a year. And in 1986, the second John of Slaughterfield
and Deidre of Carlisle
were made, John of Slaughterfield won, and they did not finish their term. So it would have been in 86, or early 87 that the proscription came down and we became the erroneously acclaimed legal district in Ontario, really mundanely existing for reporting exclusively. An expression that was coined by Mistress Tamara of Romany.
But Leanne, you had other questions?
No, I've got a picture to share if I can.
Sure.
Work this out. Just a moment.
And then Stuart has a question next.
I mean, it's not so much a question as an answer, because you asked if there's different things in different kingdoms that we've noticed since relocating. But
so
wait for the picture to be done first.
Pennsic 1986 was my second event. I wanted to see the field battle, but when I got there, there was like 6 people between me and the rope, and that was like in 5 feet. And I wasn't rude enough to elbow my way through. So I held my cheap plastic 35mm camera above my head and clicked away at the noise.
There's the bear tabard.
And then when I got back to Petawawa, got the film developed, radical concept for those newbies these days. And then did this pen and ink sketch amalgamating several of the photos. The man who's front and center with the conical helm and the chain camail is Baron Iden Okankara. And he is leading the armed might of the not region of Eldamir. And the gentleman with the 3-colored tabard is a lord by the name of Hakon, and he's from Skraeling. Now the other people from that wearing bear tabards or facing the enemy here have all been identified from this drawing. And the people attacking are the Tuchuks. And the Tuchuks
Which reminds me, something that wasn't mentioned.
The Tuchuks were attempting to do an end run around the mid-realm line to take out the Middle Kingdom royalty. So in the summer of the proscription, we were protecting the mid-realm royalty.
When we came back as a crown principality, and the King of the Middle was our prince, the King of the Middle was far away. So they were represented.
You should call it. But the answer
They
is
were
not that.
They were represented by a Lord and Lady Lieutenant in Eldamir, who were Iden and Enid.
I was right, Enid.
Enid, the Baron of Septentry and the Baroness of Skraeling, all things, because at the time there were only 2 baronies.
Yeah. But I believe Stuart had another comment and Leanne had another question.
Yeah.
Because we'll ramble about history because we were there. Stuart, you had something about interkingdom differences?
Yeah. So as Lan already mentioned, we both started in Antir, although I more specifically started in Tieri, which is Principality of Antir, which of course is descended from the west, not the middle. And Tieri is basically BC in much the same way that Eldamir is basically Ontario. We don't follow the borders exactly. But Antir, I left Antir before Abacal split off. So counting Abacal as part of Antir, the kingdom was so large that somebody would win crown and they would spend every weekend going to a different place, to a different event for their entire reign, not taking a single weekend off.
Yes.
And not get everywhere.
Yes. So in the early days of the Middle Kingdom, there would be 3 events per weekend through the mid-realm, and you had to pick which one you were going to. And I was the clerk of precedence, and if the king held a court, it held higher rank than the queen holding a court, than the prince and princess holding a court, than a regent holding a court. It was complicated as hell. And we did it in DOS because it was the 80s.
Yes. The Antir Kingdom calendar is quite similar, where events have different levels, which determine if you're allowed to conflict with them or not.
Yeah.
And depending on which regions you're in and so forth and so on. But that contributes a lot, I think, to that sense of separation between the populace and the crown. Because, they're from the other side of the kingdom. I don't know anybody who even knows them, much less know them. And so you do get that separation.
We're a small town. Everybody knows everybody more or less.
Now, sometimes that works out really well because you get that pomp and circumstance and that magic mystery for the dream and all that sort of stuff. And sometimes you're like, this court's really boring. I don't know any of these people. I don't know what they're talking about. I don't even know people getting awards.
Yeah.
So, especially if you take one step down lower to the principality level, where we have the prince and princess as the coronets, as the more direct representatives, and like I got my award of arms from the prince and princess because they could give that level of award out directly without having to go to the crown. They had a very simple rule. You see, out in BC, the weather's generally fairly nice, and I could go to an event if I'm willing to drive 4 to 5 hours basically every weekend for certainly the whole summer, if not for 6 months straight. And basically every event is a weekend camping event.
Yes.
So it's not show up at a site for 8 to 10 hours and then leave and drive home. It's you're going to be there for a couple days, which means every event is also a party every night. So there's a very simple rule. During the day, the crowns are the crowns or coronets or what have you, and they have the pointy hats on. You pay appropriate respect. They're very much a genuflecting kingdom. You walk in front of the thrones, you genuflect because that is the representation of the crown, etc. The royals have an aura around them that you respect. But in the evening, when the pointy hats come off, oh yeah, no, that's just so and so. Yeah, they're just drinking like the rest of us. And so they get the blending of, yes, the pomp and circumstance and playing the game, but everybody still gets to have a fun time during the course of the event and overnight and all that sort of thing. So that's kind of their approach to dealing with that structural problem of being so big, but everybody wants to have fun together. But yeah, it's a problem that Eldamere doesn't have because it's just a difference in size and kingdom.
Absolutely. Leanne, you had another question?
So I have three things. One of them you are going to want to write down, and we'll start with that one. When we first moved here, one of the things that would have made our transplant easier is a list of annual events and the estimated weekend or month that they occur. As an example, Lady Mary's, or Sock Burner, or Practicum, because when we got here, we tried to plan out our year and we're like, we have no idea what is happening when. And that culture that this kingdom has of sharing information and having all the historical knowledge as an oral tradition has very evidently carried over. But as new people or new transplants, having a list kind of like this is the anticipated schedule of what events are supposed to be held in what groups would make. Sorry, I am talking with my hands.
No.
I will put this on. So having that list like posted on the website of, okay, so January, these are the events that traditionally happen in January and February and March, would make planning, especially for our situation when Sebastian only gets a certain number of days off, so much more helpful. So I'm going to give that to you.
No, that's valid. That's totally valid. And if you're driving from Ottawa, every event needs planning.
Yes.
I understand.
Yeah, so that is something when we first moved here was extremely frustrating for us.
Because we're a small town. Oh, how do you get to so-and-so? Oh, turn left at the place where the tree used to be, but it burned down 10 years ago. That's very much us, 100%.
Yes.
And that's kind of why we're doing these newcomer corners, because we can drip feed the oral traditions without being overwhelmed. And you can ask these questions, go, oh yeah, you're right.
Having a list like that, like a calendar list of these are the events listed on the Eldamere website would be so wonderful.
So,
Point taken.
We have a new Kingdom web minister.
I have talked to Fish about this.
Right. And Fish is still getting their feet under them.
Yes, they are.
Once Fish, give Fish a month or two, but I guarantee we can add that.
Yeah, no, thank you. That'd be great. The other thing is you mentioned that there's the AOAs. So one of the things that I really appreciate about Eldamere is the personalization of the AOAs, the scrolls, the introduction of new people into court. It feels very welcoming. I was one of those people where when I received my AOA, Her Majesty admitted to me that she had no idea who the hell I was. That woman has since become my friend, but right. I am one of those people who, when I first received my AOA, when I first started playing, it'll be 10 years ago this year, the king and queen had no idea who I was. So it was not a personalized scroll. She did the scroll herself. And I was told that they felt bad that they couldn't personalize it the way it was.
We are ridiculously spoiled with our scribal community. And when I joined, you'd go to a mid-realm event, there'd be 30 AOAs. And literally they were handing out scrolls with a single illuminated letter because that's all they could do. If you got a scroll, often you'd get a promissory which was like a photographed blank with some stuff written in. And the backlog of promissories to scrolls was like 200 scrolls. You might not get your scroll for years. And the wording was very standardized. So I know we're spoiled that way, that everything is, we try to personalize it and we'll apologize if we don't. But it's always been that way. Like I got my AOA from Osis and Hather, and I got it for being a herald and babysitting Hather's daughter. And she's in her 40s now. But it was very much, there's a lovely scribe in the Kitchener area, Adnar, if you've met him. So Adnar joined about the same time as me, but he took 25 years off. And Adnar and I did scrolls together in the beginning. And, we'd get the occasional scroll request and we would try to personalize it. And it was weird. Like literally, Komar was the king of the Mid-Realm, and he came up and he's getting handed these scrolls that were in German. He's like, I ain't signing it until I know what it says. This is weird. And I might have accidentally screwed up my German and given Konrad Matthias Jaeger the right to bear arms within the Queen of the Middle Kingdom. That was totally accidental. It was weird. But
I need an adult for that one.
You said this was a family-friendly show. I remember you saying that.
He was like, that says what? I'm like, sorry, man. But that is very unique. Absolutely. And it's something we should be proud of. And you had a third question.
I did have a third question. I'm trying to remember it right now. It had to do with the evolution of the Lost Speaker impact. Oh, how has the Lost Speaker impacted the growth of the kingdom since the creation of it? You've said that the moot is much more informal. It is unique, but how has that changed the growth of the kingdom and the evolution of the kingdom as compared to other kingdoms, especially maybe not the Mid-Realm, because they're a different monster.
Funny you should mention it. So North Shield, which was a principality of the Mid-Realm, that split off.
I've lived there.
I believe they also have a law speaker.
I'm going to check that. I
believe they do.
That.
They definitely asked us, so how's this law speaker thing work? So I've got a unique perspective I've been the Kingdom Chatelaine for about 5 years, 3 years as a lesser office, 2 years as a greater office. I'm done this summer. And part of what I have been really passionate about is growing our kingdom, because historically we're a small town. We suck at certain things, or we used to suck at certain things. When a new person, law clerk, thank you. When new people would show up, we would fall all over ourselves to make people feel welcome. By the third event, well, they've been here forever. They know what's going on. And I remember when I became the Kingdom Chatelaine, I went around and talked to a bunch of people who had been around a while and went, why did you stay? Why did you stay? Why did you stay? In the old days, a generation of the SCA was 2-3 years. Because people would come in, they'd play for 2-3 years, they'd go. The way the SCA has evolved now, our kingdom is 80% lifers and 20% new people. And back in the early 2000s, we would go to court. And I remember we had one king and queen, and they gave out 3 AOAs their entire reign, which is a huge red alert. That means we're not bringing new people in and keeping them. So part of what we did is we went around and interviewed, why'd you stay? Why'd you stay? Why'd you stay? Why'd you stay? And part of it is we are a very friendly group, but because we're a tight-knit group, we don't impart information well. That's why we do these newcomer corners. And we have variety of old timers. If you get a circle of old timers and you ask them, 5 old timers, you ask them a question, you're going to get 8 answers. So we try to drip feed the culture rather than info dumping, because when I joined the Mid-Realm, I got handed a handbook, a 40-page handbook, and I had to read it, and that's how I learned. The world doesn't work that way anymore. A wall of text on a website is not appealing to the modern mind. So we try to drip feed things in a blog or wiki style and try to allow feedback. And new people ask the best questions. In our mid-realm heritage, and it's baked into some of our older people's cultural brain, the first thing we want to do is explain our award system. But we don't care about our award system, so why would we teach you that? It made no sense to spend 2 hours explaining the 35 kingdom awards of the Middle Kingdom that didn't matter. So we try to explain, here's the line of the North. And then some new person goes, why do the bards not speak of so-and-so? Okay, now we're having a conversation about our culture. That's useful. Or, we talk at an event, I ran a Newcomer's Corner at Trillium War, and we were talking about what to bring to a camping event. Or here's what you can expect at Pennsic. And some young people from London went, why isn't Trinidad a barony? Okay, let's talk about that. New people should be able to direct their information, and ask, well, why do we do this weird thing? Or, well, how can we do this better? So this is kind of a feedback forum for new people. And it's an open secret. We're doing this to retain you and make you feel part of things. And this is the space where you can ask anything and we don't care. And we're going to try not to overwhelm you with old timers info dumping. But
It's appreciated.
Now, to get back to your question, our kingdom is growing. We are growing about 5% a year. The SCA in other kingdoms are not growing. Now, some of it is they split off and formed a whole new kingdom. You're going to lose members that way. But there are statistics up to, I think, 2021 or 2022 of kingdom membership levels. And you can see Eldamir just slowly inching up, which is awesome. That means we're doing a good job of bringing people in, making them feel welcome, and them staying. Because they're not going to buy a membership or get an AOA or any of that sort of thing if they don't feel welcome. The most important thing about why people stay is they join for the community. They join for any number of reasons. They join because they like to drink beer with their friends or hit people with sticks, or they want to redact Hungarian 15th century recipes. That's not why people stay. Everybody stays because of the community, because they get 7,500 friends they didn't know they had. They find people with shared interests because we're 28 hobbies in a trench coat. That's why people stay. So part of the Newcomer Corner is to match you guys up with the right community of people. Yes, go ahead.
How do I reduce my number of hobbies to 28?
I can't tell you. I'm a serial hobbyist. I've done everything linearly. I have done the SCA backwards. So I decided when I was new that I'd be the local herald, because I wasn't in the room when the group needed a local herald. And when I came back into the room, I was the group local herald. And yes, they absolutely, Stuart, you're right. So I started off in heraldry, and then I decided to be a seneschal, and then I decided to do ANS, and then I decided to do archery. I'm terrible at most of it. And I didn't really get it seriously into fighting until I was 50. So I've done it all wrong. I was supposed to do that in my 20s. But right. No, these are good questions, and this is really good feedback.
And we've got hands up.
We've got a couple of other questions. I think I had mine up first, and then Eleanor, and then Baron Duncan.
Go for it.
So I just wanted to ask you if you could explain a little bit more about, if you know, Caldrithig, how it got started, and the Skraeling Althing, which I know used to be the entire area, or Ottawa.
Okay.
I'm really confused about the logistics of that.
So, Duncan, keep me honest about this. So when we started, Septentria was all of Ontario, and Septentria had canton. So it was like an amoeba with the little floaty things inside, which was weird because most groups didn't do it that way. Most groups, the first group that formed in a state or province, you're a barony. And then all the groups that formed in that state or province afterwards, well, you're a canton of that barony, which created a power inequality because the people who lived in Detroit were a barony and the people who lived in Ann Arbor were a canton, to give you an example. That's totally inaccurate, but that gives you the idea. So Eldamir started with the amoeba group idea. So Skraeling Althing was at one point a canton of Septentria. Skraeling Althing split off to become the barony of Skraeling Althing. And at that point, it was a one-group barony where the canton became a barony. And then other groups started forming around, like the stronghold of Greyfells, the stronghold of Sir Brand.
Do that.
Hmm?
No,
Oh, I heard
that
it.
was my son.
And of course, at that point, we didn't want to have a barony with like lesser groups. So Skraeling Althing became the name of the barony, and the canton of Caldrithig formed. Now, at one point, we had 5 or 6 groups in Skraeling Althing. At one point, North Bay was a canton of Skraeling Althing.
There's an odd fact in that. Flaming Sky, which is the North Bay group, was originally a canton of Septentria.
Yes.
Because,
But it was
because
too far away.
Septembrians formed it.
It was too far away to be effective and such. So they split off and became a shire, which is an independent small group that is not a barony. And then they didn't really like that, and so they asked the Baron Baroness of Skraeling, I think it was Minkin and Kess at that time.
Yes, it was.
If they could join Skraeling. And Kess and Minkin went, sure. And so a letter was sent to the bod, and the bod goes, we've got rules for a group to split off from a barony, but we've never had a group wanting to join a barony. So the bod actually had to change the rules to allow it. So we forced a change in the corpora of the SCA in the best possible way.
Eldamir is responsible for a lot of rule changes. But does that answer your question, Scythe? Did you have other questions?
No, not right now. Go ahead and do Eleanor next, and then Baron Duncan were the next people up.
Sure, Eleanor.
But you're muted, Eleanor.
Sorry, thanks. So this is along the line of what Stuart mentioned about having multiple courts across a huge kingdom. In Onstiora, landed nobility had much more responsibility in that they were allowed to confer an AOA.
Yes, I saw that in your kingdom laws. I thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah, so I received my AOA from a Baron and Baroness, as well as my first Arts and Sciences Award. I had not seen the King and Queen for my first 2 years in the SCA because it was so huge, which is a drawback, I think. It's nice to get to know your crowns.
Yeah.
And it's nice that they're so friendly. And the other thing I wanted to mention is about awards and award regalia. In Onstiora, when you received an award above the AOA, like for martial arts or for arts and sciences, you got a little medallion.
Yes.
If you have a grant of arms, you got a garter. And most people don't wear their garter on the leg, they wear it all around their arm or on their shoulder. But you can look at someone and instantly be able to size up what awards they have and what level they're at, because people wear their regalia at every single opportunity. And here people don't do that.
Right. And that is the teenager rebelling against the adult, because in the mid-realm, they wore their kingdom awards religiously. And Eldamir rebelled against that tradition. I remember getting my award of the Silver Oak, which was an award for sciences, because arts and sciences were 2 separate offices back then. Oh, by the way, we had a husband and wife in Brnachtwnog who would argue constantly, what is an art and what is a science? We determined if you hit it with a hammer and it breaks, it's an art. If you hit a dance master with a hammer, he breaks. Dancing is an art. If you hit beer with a hammer, it's still beer. Brewing is a science. So I got the award of the Silver Oak, and I got given a little medallion with the badge of the Silver Oak, and I didn't wear it, and people gave me grief at every event. Why aren't you wearing your award medallion? So I understand that I understand the one culture, and I understand the pushback. A lot of people in Eldamir, they don't like we have a lot of peers that don't want to wear their coronets all day. We have a lot of our Kingdom Awards. We do have some people who wear Kingdom Award badges, but we don't have 35 Kingdom Awards. We have 6. So it's far more low key. But you're absolutely right about the culture difference.
But something about having regalia means you can make someone else feel special, because at least for my grant, I had like 3 different woven grant garters, so that when someone I thought had come a long way was awarded their grant in the same area, I could run up to Crown, bow my head, and offer my ribbon to them as a passed down item.
Roz was making has made a whole bunch of little medallions for the different orders, and she gave them to the royalty to give out with the but the royalty never give them out. So
it comes and goes. Some royalty have been very good about giving them out. Some royalty have been good about giving out circlets for people getting awards of arms.
Yeah.
It hasn't stuck.
If you got an award and you weren't given one of these, Roz will give you one for free. Otherwise, she sells them.
Does that answer your question, Eleanor?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Cool. Any other newcomer questions? You're not new, Duncan, but go ahead.
One of the standard jokes is once a chatelaine, always a chatelaine. You just might not have the office anymore. And one of the things I like to do when talking to somebody who's new is give them a little bit of a rundown of, you know, what the SCA is about, what the base rules are. And then I ask them, what are your interests?
Absolutely.
And so you can focus in on what they are interested in. Is some guy might not be interested in sword fighting and want to know who they can get who they can talk to about weaving. And
that
you know,
comes to Leanne's point, you know, talking about the trench coat and the hobbies. Everybody's SCA is different. Duncan's SCA is nothing like my SCA, is nothing like Thomas's SCA, is nothing like Eleanor's SCA. We're all playing a slightly different flavor of the game. And we're pointed, yes, and we have a Venn diagram and we're overlapped on certain interests, but we're really, like, if you wanted to be a herald, you could spend 40 hours a week commenting on submissions and researching titles. And, you know, and there are dedicated Facebook and Discord groups for the heralds, if that's your bag. And that makes them very happy. You know, some people are stick jocks and all they want to do is fight and drink beer, and that's their SCA, and they're quite happy doing that. And you know, there are some people who are super into archery, and like Don the Duckman down in our way, he's running outdoor practices in December every week. And oh my God, and that, you know, they go on woods walks and shoots. Everybody's SCA is different. The best part is try different things and see if you like it. And don't feel you can't insert yourself into one of the sub-circles or weasels in the trench coat, because they'll welcome you with open arms and you can try something new.
Sophie has a good question. As someone who is very new, may I ask what an award of arms is? Would you like to explain that quickly?
So when you join the SCA, we're all assumed by default to be of gentle birth. We are not, unless you want to be a peasant or a leper, we're all assumed to be refined gentlefolk. An award of arms is a society-wide award where you are granted arms or the right to bear arms or heraldry or a coat of arms. And you are granted the title of Lord, Lady, Noble, Armiger, or a cultural equivalent thereof. Traditionally, an award of arms is given, you've been in the SCA a year or two, you're making the place better, it's your official welcome. Now, in the past, sometimes awards of arms have been wildly overdue, and somebody has just snuck by for 7-10 years because they look like they belonged. And some people, oh my God, you did what? And at their second event, they're getting an award of arms. This is a generalist statement. It varies wildly from king and queen to king and queen. But generally speaking, it's your official welcome to the SCA. You're one of us. $8 years? That's good. Stuart, it took me 4.
I also was living in a place where there was lots of royalty. Like, it was not for lack of opportunity for attending major events or events with courts. It was just like ninjas, crickets.
Yeah.
I remember Agnar the Goth took forever. Like, he must have been over a decade before he got his award of arms. And everyone just said, I thought he already had one.
Or Alfwin the Blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people, they've been here forever. The nice thing is, it's a nice way for a scroll to be given and say, hey, you've done this cool thing. But really it's hey, we're better for you being here. You did something. And some people, the SCA is as much as you want to be. If you come out once a year and drink beer with your friends and then go home, might take a while, because it'll take a while for you to make the place a better place. If you volunteered for a canton office, your third meeting in, it's not going to take you forever. But it's kind of set your own speed. Does that help, Sophie?
I think this is a good time to remind people too that you can nominate people for awards. And if you do know of someone that has not gotten an award of arms yet, like our baronial chatelaine does not have our AOA, write her in and let the royals know, and they can rectify that.
In fact, I'll just drop in the chat the award recommendation form. Now, our kingdom has a very simple structure. I am not kidding. The Mid-Realm had 35 different kingdom awards, and I think they've made about 7 more since we left. We have a couple things. If you're recommending someone, we have the Scroll of Honor, which is a shout out. You did a cool thing. You're on a list. It's a little bit of word fame. We have the Award of Arms, which is, you've made this place better. You've been around for a while. We want you to stay. And we have awards that are higher. If you're not sure, the award form can be, I don't know what I'm recommending for, but they've done this cool thing. You leave it up to the royalty. The royalty will get a copy of that email, and it might take a while. So if you recommend somebody and that royalty doesn't get to it, next reign, recommend them again. No, we don't have more awards.
Yes, we do. We have grant level awards. The Middle Kingdom just had the basic awards, the Willow, the Silver,
they have them,
and then it went straight up to peerages. We have a whole other level of awards.
We don't have the Order of the Gaping Wound, which you got if you got hurt while fighting. We don't have, let's see, the Order of the Royal Vanguard, which was an award just given to people who had served as
That wasn't that. When was like that? That I'd never heard of that when we were in the middle.
94.
Okay, that was after we were a principality. We were a principality.
What are we poking with a stick?
The gaping wound.
Yeah, yeah. It was so.
By the time we became a kingdom, the Middle Kingdom may have had more awards than we did.
Oh, they certainly did.
When we became a principality, the Middle Kingdom hadn't grown its awards quite so much.
And of course, when we were a principality, we had principality awards that the prince and princess could give. We had the Order of the Bee, the Order of the Peregrine, the Order of the Golden Otter, the Award of the Wolf's Tooth. They were pretty cool. And some of the stuff we carried over, like the Scroll of Honor and the Award of the Wolf's Cub for kids. The Order of the Wit. Yes.
Speaking of interkingdom differences, coming here and then in court, hearing them announce a scroll of honor, and my attention just snaps instantly over. Because in Ontario, the scroll of honor, it's the memorial for everyone who has died.
Oh, so that must make you twitch every time.
So, I mean, and they go hard into that. Like, they actually have a riderless horse ceremony where they bring an actual horse in.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they go big on memorializing, because I mean,
I gotta
it's
be
a very
honest,
big
on
family.
the outside looking in, Antir seems like a very intense kingdom. Like, you know, when the knights go and swear fealty, they all draw their swords and place the blades on the shoulders of the king and
Oh
queen.
yes, oh yes,
I'm
it's
like-
quite epic to be there for.
That's like, okay, they're one sneeze away from a lot of paperwork.
I am not aware of anyone ever having to have done that paperwork, but yeah, I mean, it is definitely one of the Norse kingdoms, and that influences a lot of that an awful lot. But yeah, yeah, I mean, as a fencer rather than an armored combatant, it also very much has the culture that the armored combatants are the king's men and the king's champion, and the fencers are the queen's men, very musketeer splitting things that way. So the top rapier championship there is the Kingdom Rapier Championship, which is very hard fought for, not chosen like it is here. And it's the Queen's Rapier Championship, or QRC.
So Sydney asked a question. Actually, this is a great question, Sydney. And I'm jumping, Duncan, because we want to give the new people a chance to ask. What's with swearing fealty? What's that about? Do you swear fealty to a specific king or queen, or the kingdom in general? Well, that's an interesting question. So the concept of fealty historically, at least from my viewpoint, is it was a two-way contract, between a baron and their king, or a squire and their knight. It was literally a compact. I will do the following things for you. You will do the following things for me. Now, in the Middle Kingdom, when our kingdom is descended from the Middle Kingdom has the tradition of rote fealties. They are pre-written fealties. Here is what you swear. Here is what they answer. This is what you can expect. Kingdoms like the East, you swear what's in your heart. It's all made up on the spot. We are very much here's what you do. And traditionally, the response for fealty is right out of Lord of the Rings. It's the Lord Denethor, this we shall hear and never forget, nor fail to reward that which is given. Fealty with love, service with honor, and oath breaking with vengeance. That is right out of the Two Towers. The Midrealm did that, and the Eldamir did that, and we've kind of morphed it. Now our royalties responses are somewhat customized, but it floats between 3 or 4 different choices. So fealty is a promise. So if you go look at the Kingdom Ceremonies book, the oaths of fealty are in there. So if you want to swear fealty, go look to see what you're promising. So the populist oath of fealty is, I will serve the realm as best I can. I will follow the banner and honor my king. I shall attend the throne and love my queen. The laws I uphold, the traditions I honor. I serve Eldamir, thus swear I. It's a pretty easy promise. I promise to be a decent human being and help where I can. It's not supposed to be, fire and blood. And the king and queen promise to honor you and remember you. So it's a pretty light promise. Now, some people have very different opinions about fealty. So when my wife and I got together, my wife is very much I won't swear fealty unless you give me a reason to. And my opinion was, I will swear fealty unless you give me a reason not to. And we would literally, I would go up and swear fealty, and she would go up and swear fealty, and I wouldn't. And so it was a personal choice. And you do swear to the crown, and you as the individual can decide, I'm swearing to Bob, who happens to be the king, we're going to honor Bob. Or you could swear, I'm swearing to the institution of the king and queen. Bob, he's okay, I guess, but really I'm supporting the kingdom. So the answer to your question is, it depends. Does that help, Sydney?
Yeah. Anyways, enjoy.
So My point was, in response to the Antier's honor scroll, when Osus was killed early in his reign, and he was to be Eldamir's first war king. So we went to war without a king. And I don't remember who, but somebody built a model Viking longship.
Yes.
And with the permission of the Coopers, who own the land that Pennsic happens on, put the boat onto Cooper's Lake with tokens of memorial, and the boat was burned.
And the Coopers would not let anybody do anything with the lake, so it was very special. And the person who started that boat was Garvik der Waffenschmidt, who lived in the Brno area.
And that became
a bit of a bad habit of just like
an annual tradition
vaguely waving at each
at
other.
Pennsic. And people from far and wide in the SCA would bring tokens of those who had passed, put it in the boat, and it would the boat would burn on the lake, and they fish it out, finish burning it on the shore. And so Eldamir, up until COVID, and then I guess this past Pennsic, not many Eldamiri went down to Pennsic, but it's been a tradition. Started with Osus.
Yep, 1999.
Because of Osus.
Yeah.
And that's a tradition that went far beyond just Eldamir, to the point where the senior Cooper passed away several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the family asked if they could put tokens in the boat. So
yeah, no, good point. Any other questions? This is good. I like this. Sydney.
But you're muted.
Right. Yeah, I know. I found it. I want to know more about why we're the kingdom that sings. How did that come about? Kind of what's the history of that? I've heard Master Hector talk a little bit about it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So we were a kingdom that sang before Hector, but Hector, it's mostly Hector's fault. When we were a region, we were very patriotic. When we were the Autonomous Geographic Collective, we were very patriotic. When we became a principality, we would go to a feast, and the entire feast was singing beginning to end. And it wasn't just Hector. There were other people at the time, but Hector was the poster child of, he traveled everywhere with his book of songs and sang everything, and really got the bardic circles going. And Marion of Heatherdale, who you might know, she might have a published CD or two. She did some singing. Garrett Galbraith did some singing. Sivia has done some singing. We have a lot of people now. Osk of the Harbors and Dietrich, and we have a lot of bards. We have a lot of storytellers too. So we were the principality that sings before we were a kingdom, and then we were just the kingdom that sings. So the mid-realm would march onto the field at Pennsic, and they have drums and banners, and we'd come out singing, and Callantyr would come out singing, and then we'd have a little sing-off. And we tease Callantyr. There's the song, death, doom, despair, and woe, this is a song from Caldrithig. Like all their songs were downers, and all our songs were uplifting. And the only people in the mid-realm that did a lot of singing other than that was the Dark Horde. You can find online the Dark Horde songbook, and a lot of their songs are filks. So they are take a modern song and put vaguely medieval words to it, which is a period tradition, but a lot of our songs are filks. So the E song, I'll Sing You One-O, is Green Grow the Rushes O. And we've changed the words. A number of Sigurd songs are all Stan Rogers filks. Every single Stan Rogers song he did something to. But we've always been the kingdom that sings, and it's because of that bardic tradition.
Let me just add to that, to the bardic tradition, because a lot of our culture goes back to Aiden and Katha. A lot of the culture of this kingdom.
Yes.
And they've been gone for a long time. So people who are new don't realize that. But when Aiden and Katha were Baron and Baroness, one of the positions in their court was the baronial bard, who would sit in the court, in front and to the beside of them. That would be one of those court positions that you would see in the court, every court. And often it was a harper, so Nain from Skraeling Althing and Rhiannon
Y. Yep.
Rhiannon Y. And they would play the harp music and they would sing songs as they were coming in, and they gave a position of honor in the baronial court to the bard.
Yep, you're 100%.
And that, I think, was also one of the things that helped establish the bard as a very respected position in these Northlands, and encouraged others like Hector to start singing.
100%. Sydney, you got another question?
No, I was just going to say our barony has a baronial bard. It's Phil.
Oh, awesome. So yes, and your point about printing out a couple sheets of songs and passing them around, great idea. One of the newcomer corners we'll do in the summer at a camping event is we'll print out a sheet with 2 songs and go, okay, let's teach you a song. And I love singing. I cannot remember the words of anything to save my life. I have lyricitis, or whatever you want to call it. But absolutely, there are all sorts of songs we can teach you. And I've got a printout of every Stan Rogers folk ever done. We have a song about not carrying a tune in a bucket. Other newcomer questions? I love this. This is great. You have us captive.
We also have CDs, by the way.
We do. And you can find some of the songs on YouTube now.
Yeah.
Philomena's got a question.
I do. Speaking of the CDs, okay, so I was on Heather Dale's website the other day, and I was using the Wayback Machine because I couldn't figure out what the order of the tracks was on the Red album, and this webpage has not existed since like 2005, but I found it on the Wayback Machine, and it told me the set list, and then it also told me that 2 other CDs exist that are out of print that aren't on her website anymore.
I have I have 2 Bardic. I have Bardic double CD from the Bardic Kitchen Circle, and I have the red CD and the white CD that Hector put out.
I have the Red album. You need to rip those and then email them to me.
Only with Hector's permission.
I bet we could get his permission.
I do see him fairly often.
Listen, Thomas, we have him on speed dial at this point. Like,
so when we became a principality, they put out a songbook, and at the Efferwick 50th, they had copies of them there, and there were only like 200 copies made, and it was a songbook that was like 200 pages of songs, red spiral bound. And there are a couple old timers that have those, and they've got the old classics. Like they're so old that people around now don't know Glen Warple or whatnot. Or modern songs that
Brand. You had
Like-
better believe that any event Duncan is at, we are singing Glenmore Falls. You listen.
Like, I don't know if you guys, know the modern version of Mary Mac, but we used to sing Mary Mac all the time.
Mary Mac's mother's going to make Mary Mac marry me.
That's right. Forgotten Sea, Great Big Sea does a cover of it. Yeah. But no, we have there. It's awesome going and looking for that. Go look up the Dark Horde songbook. I believe it's online. You might need the Wayback Machine, and the website might look like a MySpace page, but it's all that stuff's out there.
I have 2 copies of the Book of David and Tang Whistle.
Oh, that's awesome. And of course, Hector's coming around now, so you can hit him up for some of his, you really want to ask Hector to sing There's a Splinter in My Rowing Bench.
I think that might be on one of the CDs.
One of the great things about the pieces that Hector wrote or felt for Eldemir purposes is he sang in the key of Army. And so a general lack of great singing ability does not hurt the quality of the song. These are songs to be sung with enthusiasm, not overwhelming choral skill, which suited me because I learned to sing in the back of Army trucks. Unfortunately,
chorus.
I remember when I first joined, Enid asked me if I knew some of the marching songs from the Army, and I said, yes, I know a fair number of them. And so, well, could you sing any? Not in polite company, Your Excellency.
Leanne's got a question.
So here's a fun one. Awards are a wonderful thing, but each award has its own history and story as to why it exists.
Yes.
I would love to hear the history behind the name of the Kingdom Awards.
Okay. So when we became a kingdom, because we were Canadian, we formed committees. We had the award committee, and we came up with all sorts of awards. And then David and Alina won their first crown tournament, and they were in this weird limbo where they couldn't be the prince and princess because we had a principality prince and princess. They were the heirs and occasionally the rebels, and eventually became the king and queen. So they quietly let the committees do what they were going to do, and they did all their work. And then Coronation Day was announced, and they went to the awards committee and went, yeah, that's nice. We're scrapping it and making it up our own. So there were a few veins in the foreheads that went because committees think we're writing the perfect set of laws, the perfect set of awards. And King and Queen went, no, we're going to just change this. And now we had a number of ideas for awards. They quickly changed. So the award of Orion was one of the original ones, and it was the Arts and Sciences Award that was planned. We originally were going to have the Ordo Manus, which was going to be the Order of the Hand, and it was like the Ulster Hand, a helping hand, and it got replaced. So Osis was coming back from Baron Wars, and there were 3 people in the car. There was Osis, a Lady Bernadette, who was a relatively new person, and Master Worgan McGregor. The car rolled. Osis and Bernadette died instantly. Worgan lived without a scratch. Obviously, it was traumatic for him. We have a service award now called the Award of the Maiden's Heart, and it's a counterchanged blue and yellow heart. Bernadette always wore a blue and yellow dress. It's named after her.
What did Orion get its name? Like, why Orion?
It was the committee came up with it. So the original idea was there were going to be a bunch of constellation awards, and they all had stars on them, and it all got scrapped. And there are a couple awards with stars, and there are a couple awards with constellation names. it's a remnant of the committee. So we have, for arts and sciences, we have the Award of Orion. We have for service, we have the Award of the Maiden's Heart. And for martial activities, we have the Award of Scarlet Banner, which was named after, the songs and culture of us following the Scarlet Banner into battle. And those are our Award of Arms level awards. Now, above that, give me a second, Duncan. We have our Grant of Arms level award. The Martial Fighting Award is the Order of Thorbjorn's Hammer, and it's named after Thorbjorn Osis Branson. It's a memorial award for Osis. We have the Order of the Crucible, which is a remnant of the committee, and a crucible is something where you burn things and you can refine metals and what have you. So it's a good arts and science representation. And we have the Order of the Wing. And if you look at the badge, it has stars on it. That's accidental, but it's a wagon wheel. It's a red wagon wheel. So late in our principality, early in the kingdom days, all our fighters would camp at the bottom of Cardiac Hill at Penzic. And we hated that hill by the end of Penzic. Now imagine marching up the hill in 40 pounds of armor every day to go fight. So Kinred, who was the Baron of Septentria at one point, but before that, he organized this giant red wagon. And a bunch of people in the kingdom they'd all load their helmets and shields in this wagon, and we would push that damn wagon up Cardiac Hill. And it became the symbol for selfless and ridiculous service. And that's where we get the Order of the Wing, the Order of the Wagon. And those are, so we have our 3 AOA levels, our 3 Grant of Arms levels, and we have the Award of the Wolf's Cub. Obviously, it's representative of a baby wolf cub. We had that as a principality. We carried it over. The Scroll of Honor, it's a roll of honor. It was carried over from the principality. And of course, we have some awards that don't have a cultural history, like the Award of the King's Favor, the Award of the King's Favor. It's what the label says. But does that help? Does that explain?
That was beautiful. And, that, we know the awards, the Thorbjorn's Hammer as an example, and I know Sebastian well enough. He got his Thorbjorn's Hammer at Hare. But I know that the historical significance of it now will mean all that much more to him.
Absolutely.
Am I right, Sebastian?
I actually already knew that because I'm a nerd and I read a lot, and it's on the Eldo Wiki. But yes, it's always good to hear the story from somebody who knows it a little bit better than just a webpage as well.
Now with the Order of the Orion, I don't know this for certain. However, it may be why that survived this willowing process. When Eldemir was in the early days, Baron Iden wrote The Doom of Eldemir.
Yes.
Mhm.
And it finishes off with the Lady Eldemir being cast to the heavens and taking the guise of the constellation Orion.
She becomes her own constellation. It didn't say that she became the constellation Orion. My
It's
understanding was she became her own constellation.
It's implied by the description, because he's got the guarding the southern border with a sword, and that describes the constellation Orion.
I think that is coincidental. So I was on the
Orion was an archer.
Yeah. I was on the ceremonies committee and the awards committee because I was a keener back then. And I was the young kid in the room. And Nika was on the committee. And there were a couple other old timers on the committee. And they had all sorts of historical reasons for all the constellation, but I don't think it related to the song.
Who is Lady Eldemir? I've never heard that before.
Okay, so so when Eldemir was proscribed,
I will say this song is on the dead page that doesn't have any recordings available, and there's no recordings of this song on YouTube.
It wasn't a song. The Lady Eldemir is not from a song. That's from a tale.
Oh, okay. Well, see, this is what I mean. The CD,
Okay.
I only can see the titles of the things that are in the CD. I can't listen to the tracks, and so I didn't know
Okay.
it wasn't a song.
So I didn't wrote a, so when Eldemir, when as was said earlier, when we were in Ice Dragon, and the prince, who was actually a friend of ours, came over to tell us that, you know, there were going to be no more regions, and Eldemir, we're not to use the word Eldemir anymore. As Brand said, people were very sad, and Baron Iden wrote a story, which was published, called "The Doom of Eldemir."
I just shared it. I just posted a link in the chat to the whole story.
For the whole story. And at the 50th anniversary, at the Bardic Circle, when Iden couldn't be there, I told that story because I thought it should be told there at our 50th anniversary. But it tells of the Lady Eldemir, who was a symbol of the lands, and how her time was like, it just wasn't her time, and ends with her becoming a constellation in the sky.
We had
And
a
then
lot
later on, Hector wrote a sequel to the story when Eldemir, you know, when the proscription was lifted and Eldemir became a kingdom, he was asked to write a sequel to the story. So there's also Hector's sequel to the story.
We had a lot of pent up emotion back then. But yes, I've shared a link to the Doom of Eldemir, and if you go up a level on the page, the history of Eldemir, there are a bunch of songs and stories there.
So
Great, thank you.
Here's a little bit of trivia, since no one has their hand up right now. When we were going to choose the totem animal for Eldemir, there was a lot of discussion, and Szilard was pushing for the wolf, and Finvar was pushing for the panther. And you might think, why a panther? And he had a fair amount of support, but nowhere near the support that Szilard had, and that's why we have the king, you know, the wolf as our symbol.
And kingdom, principality, we had a poll of all the different heraldry to go with the name Eldemir. And when I became the principality herald, they literally had cardboard stock, print, they had been hand drawn and hand colored in with markers, and there were 20 of them to like hold up as flashcards. And some of the heraldry was interesting. Some of it was wolf heads. One of them was a horse, to represent Elder Mare. But what I was going to get to was one of the little known facts about the panther, which was a nice heraldic animal which suited Finvar and his persona much more, was that its breath scares away dragons. Any other questions? Okay, I think that we could call that a day. That was really good.
Thank you so much.
Anytime. Now, for all the new people here, obviously you have met all the old people who are filled with knowledge. And if at any point you have a question, ask us. We'll tell you. And the only way our culture and history stay alive is if we tell these stories and we explain things. And Leanne's right, we ought to write some of this down now and then. So if you prompt us with these questions, it makes us go, oh yeah, we do that thing because of the thing and the thing. And it helps us remember why we do what we do. And we can explain why that man's wearing a badger on his head. And if you go and look at the link that I put above with where all the histories were, in those PDFs, I put all the illustrations that went with the original published copies of those histories, and some of those are really nice illustrations, so it's worth checking out. Cool.
Okay, well, thank you to everybody who came out tonight. Great turnout, and if you know of anybody who might be interested in this, we are going to be posting this, I believe, on the Eldemere YouTube channel. So everybody can have a look at it and see more about the history, and we can keep this culture going. And yeah, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you for having me.
Take care. Bye-bye.